I'm Lena, and my life in a quiet Ohio suburb was a canvas of muted grays, each day bleeding into the next under the weight of a marriage that had long lost its spark. 12 years with Mark felt like a slow unraveling. Our home, a silent battlefield, where unspoken words hung heavier than any fight. But nothing could have prepared me for the night that shattered everything. A night when the man I thought I knew revealed a side so dark, it stole the ground from beneath me. As I stood in the flickering glow of a streetlight, staring into the void of our broken bond, I faced a choice that would change everything. What did he ask of me that tore my world apart? Picture this, a single, flickering streetlight outside my window, casting jagged shadows across the beige walls of my living room, as if the night itself is trying to scratch its way in. I'm Lena, 37, tucked away in a quiet suburban corner of Ohio, where the days blend into one another like smudged ink on a page. I'm not much to look at. Average height, dark hair perpetually wrestled into a messy bun, and hazel eyes so tired they dodge their own reflection. My husband, Mark, is 40, a stocky man with thinning brown hair and a gaze that always seems to be looking past me, through me, to some place I can't reach. We've been married for 12 years, a dozen years that feel like a slow unraveling. I work from home as a freelance graphic designer, sketching out logos and layouts while Mark clocks in as a mid-level manager at a hardware distribution company, coming home with the weight of the day etched into his shoulders. Our marriage isn't loud or messy. There are no shouting matches, no slammed doors, no fiery clashes to mark the boundaries of our discontent. Instead, it's a quiet void, a hollowed-out space where passion used to live. We drift through our days like ghosts haunting the same house. Mark parked in front of the TV in the living room, the blue glow of the screen washing over his face, while I sit in the kitchen, thumbing through my phone, scrolling past lives that seem brighter than mine. We eat meals in silence, the clink of forks against plates the only conversation we muster. At night, we lie on opposite sides of the bed, a vast, unspoken chasm stretching between us, as if even in sleep we're afraid to get too close. It's like we're actors in some forgotten play, rehearsing lines we've long since lost, performing for an audience that never showed up. There's no script, no direction, just the endless repetition of a life we don't know how to escape. I can still see one evening so clearly, a memory that sticks like a splinter under the skin. It was just last week, and I'd made spaghetti, the kind with the sauce I used to spend hours perfecting, back when I thought small gestures mattered. I set the table, the steam rising from the plates, the smell of garlic and basil filling the air. Mark sat down, picked up his fork, and ate without a word. Not a nod, not a glance, just the mechanical motion of someone going through the motions. He finished, pushed his plate aside, and retreated to his armchair with a beer in hand, the can hissing open like a sigh. I stayed at the sink, hands submerged in soapy water, staring at the dirty dishes as if they held some answer. When did we stop caring? When did the space between us grow so wide that even a simple thanks felt like too much to cross? Lately, though, there's been something else, a shift I can't quite name. Mark has been different, more distant than usual, if that's even possible. I've caught him staring at me lately, not with warmth or curiosity, but with this strange, calculating look that sends a shiver down my spine. It's like he's sizing me up for something I can't yet grasp. And then came that Thursday evening, a night that carved itself into my memory with a sharpness I can't shake. It was just past 7, the kind of late autumn evening in Ohio where the air hangs heavy with the promise of rain. Outside our modest 2-story house, the wind rustled the brittle leaves, and I could smell that damp, earthy scent creeping through the cracked window in the living room. I was on the couch, folding laundry, a mindless task to keep my hands busy while my mind wandered. The TV was on, murmuring a rerun of some sitcom neither of us ever laughed at, just background noise to fill the silence. A pile of towels and shirts sat beside me, the fabric still warm from the dryer, and I was halfway through folding a faded gray tee when I felt it. Mark's eyes on me. He was in his armchair across the room, nursing a beer, the can glinting under the dim lamplight. But he wasn't watching the screen. His gaze was locked on me, intense and unblinking, like he was studying every move I made. It wasn't the absent stare I'd grown used to. This was something else, something that made my skin prickle with unease, like a warning I couldn't quite hear. I tried to ignore it at first, focusing on the laundry, smoothing out creases with more care than necessary. But the weight of his stare was too much. I glanced up, meeting his eyes for a fleeting second, and saw something there I didn't recognize. Determination, maybe, or something colder. My stomach twisted, a knot forming without a clear reason why. Then he spoke, his voice low and deliberate, like he'd rehearsed the words 100 times in his head. "Lena, I've been thinking. I want to try something different. Something with my friends." I froze, mid-fold, a towel slipping from my hands and crumpling onto the couch. My heart thudded hard against my ribs, each beat echoing in my ears as I waited for him to go on. Friends? What did that even mean? There was a weight behind his words, a heaviness that pressed down on me, making the air in the room feel thicker. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just sat there with my hands hovering over the laundry, waiting for the rest of whatever this was. He shifted in his chair, leaning forward slightly, his tone eerily calm, almost detached. "I want you to do it with them. I'll just watch." The words hit me like a physical blow, stealing the breath from my lungs. My mouth went dry, my tongue sticking to the roof as if I'd swallowed sand. My hands started to tremble, the days after Mark dropped that bombshell on me felt like wading through a thick, suffocating fog. I moved through my routine like a shadow of myself, designing logos on my laptop with mechanical clicks, washing dishes with hands that didn't feel like mine, folding clothes with a mind that drifted somewhere far away. I couldn't look at him, not directly. Every time I passed him in the hallway or caught a glimpse of him in the living room, I averted my eyes, focusing on the floor, the wall, anything but his face. And the worst part? He acted like nothing had changed. He'd mumble about his day at work, grab a beer from the fridge, settle into his armchair with the same blank expression, as if he hadn't just shattered the fragile shell of our marriage with a single twisted request. His normalcy gnawed at me, deepening the unease that coiled tight in my chest. I thought about confronting him, demanding an explanation. But the words never came. I was too drained, too hollowed out to muster the fight. It was like something vital inside me had been scooped away, leaving nothing but an empty shell. There was this one moment, though, that I can't shake. I was in the bathroom, the door locked, the hum of the overhead fan drowning out the silence of the house. I stood in front of the mirror, gripping the edge of the sink, staring at the woman reflected back at me. I barely recognized her. My hazel eyes were dull, sunken, like they belonged to someone else. My skin looked sallow under the harsh fluorescent light, and my dark hair hung limp around my face, a messy bun unraveling at the nape of my neck. Who was this person? How did I get here, to this point where my own reflection felt like a stranger's? I traced a finger along the cold porcelain of the sink, searching for an answer in the lines of my face, but there was nothing, just a void staring back at me. 4 days passed like that, each one heavier than the last, until Saturday rolled around. That morning, over a breakfast of cold cereal and stale coffee, Mark mentioned it so casually, I almost choked on my spoonful of cornflakes. "The guys are coming over tonight," he said, not even looking up from his phone, his voice as flat as if he were commenting on the weather. My stomach plummeted, a sickening lurch that left me dizzy. I wanted to say something, to scream, to throw the bowl across the room. But I didn't. I just sat there, spoon frozen halfway to my mouth, paralyzed by a mix of dread and resignation that pinned me to the chair. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the house like a robot, vacuuming the living room, wiping down the kitchen counters, fluffing pillows that didn't need fluffing. It was as if I were preparing for a normal gathering, a casual get-together with friends. But deep down, I knew it was anything but. Every swipe of the cloth, every clatter of dishes, felt like I was setting the stage for something I couldn't stop. By 7 p.m. they arrived. I heard the rumble of engines pulling into the driveway, the slam of car doors, the low murmur of voices as they approached the house. I opened the door, my hands trembling just enough to betray me, and there they were, Mark's buddies since high school, men I'd met before at barbecues and poker nights, now standing on my porch with an air that felt all wrong. There was Tom, a burly mechanic with a booming laugh that echoed too loudly in the quiet evening. Dave, a quiet electrician whose shifty eyes darted everywhere but at me. Carl, a wiry construction worker who reeked of cigarette smoke, his fingers stained yellow from years of the habit. And Brian, a stocky salesman with a forced grin that didn't reach his eyes. They were ordinary guys on any other day, the kind you'd pass without a second glance, but tonight their presence felt invasive, like they were trespassing on more than just my home. Their jokes were too rough, their laughter too sharp, as if they were all in on a secret. I was only half aware I'm standing there, in the suffocating stillness of our living room, the echo of the front door closing still lingering in the air. The men, Tom, Dave, Carl, and Brian, have just left, their hurried, awkward goodbyes trailing behind them like a bad aftertaste. I've pulled my clothes back on, but they feel wrong against my skin, like they belong to someone else. My hair is a tangled mess, strands sticking to the back of my neck, and my body. It doesn't feel like mine anymore. It's as if I'm floating outside myself, watching this broken version of Lena from a distance. I turn my gaze to Mark, who's sitting in his armchair, hands folded neatly in his lap, as if nothing out of the ordinary has just happened. His eyes meet mine, and I search for something, anything, in them. Is it satisfaction I see? Indifference? Maybe a flicker of something darker? I can't tell. I wait for a surge of emotion to hit me. Anger, betrayal, disgust, even sadness. But there's nothing. Just a vast, echoing emptiness inside, like a cavern where my heart used to be. It's not even numbness. It's the absence of feeling altogether. A void so deep it swallows everything. I move without thinking, my feet carrying me to the kitchen. The house is deathly quiet now, the kind of silence that presses against your eardrums, making every small sound feel amplified. I grab a glass from the cabinet, the clink of it against the counter sounding too loud, too real. I turn on the faucet, let the water run cold, and fill the glass, watching the liquid swirl like it's the only thing grounding me. I lift it to my lips and drink slowly, each sip deliberate, as if I'm trying to wash away the night. Standing there, I stare out the window above the sink, into the dark, empty street beyond. The streetlight flickers, casting weak, uneven light across the pavement, and I wonder if anyone out there can see me, really see me, or if I've become as invisible as I feel. My mind is blank at first, a static hum, but then, like a crack in a dam, thoughts start to seep through. 12 years of marriage, of slowly losing pieces of myself, bit by bit, until I'm not sure who I am anymore. Tonight wasn't just a betrayal, it was the final fracture, the moment the last piece of me shattered. And the strangest part? I don't even hate Mark for it. I don't feel anything toward him at all. Not anger, not love, Not even pity? I just don't care. That realization sits heavy in my chest, colder than the glass in my hand. I don't know how long I stand there, lost in the darkness outside. But eventually, I hear the creak of the armchair in the living room. Mark doesn't say a word as he passes by the kitchen doorway, his footsteps heavy on the stairs as he heads to bed. No acknowledgement, no attempt to bridge the gaping silence between us. Just the sound of him retreating, leaving me alone with the weight of everything that's happened. I don't follow him. Instead, I drift to the couch, pulling a worn blanket over my shoulders as I sink into the cushions. The fabric smells faintly of laundry detergent, a mundane comfort that feels out of place in this moment. I sit there, curled up, staring at the blank TV screen, its black surface reflecting a distorted version of my face. The events of the night replay in my mind, not in vivid detail, but in fragments, flashes of discomfort, the weight of unwanted attention, the way I felt like a stranger in my own skin while it all unfolded. I don't cry. I don't scream or throw things. I just sit, letting the memories loop over and over, each pass carving the emptiness deeper. There's no catharsis, no release, just the slow, steady realization that I can't do this anymore. I can't stay in this house, in this marriage, in this life that stripped me bare. The decision isn't loud or dramatic, it forms quietly, like frost. The morning after feels like stepping into a different world, one washed out and muted, as if the chaos of last night drained all the color from my life. I'm sitting at the kitchen table, the pale light filtering through the thin, worn curtains, casting faint streaks across the scratched wooden surface in front of me. There's a cup of coffee in my hands, steam curling up in lazy wisps, but I don't drink it. I can't. My stomach feels like a knot, and the bitter smell just turns it tighter. Upstairs, Mark is still asleep, oblivious to the seismic shift that's happened inside me. His heavy breathing echoes faintly through the ceiling, a reminder of his presence. But it doesn't touch me anymore. For the first time in years, I feel a strange calm settling over me, a clarity that cuts through the fog I've been lost in. It's not relief. Not yet. But a quiet certainty. I'm done. I've been hollowed out, stripped down to nothing, and in that emptiness, I found the strength to walk away. There's no going back after what happened, no pretending I can stitch this marriage back together. The thread snapped last night, and I'm not even going to try to find the pieces. I glance around the kitchen, taking in the familiar mess, the chipped mugs on the counter, the stack of unpaid bills tucked under a magnet on the fridge, the faint stain on the linoleum from a spill I never bothered to scrub out. It's all so ordinary, so painfully mundane, and yet it feels like I'm seeing it for the last time. My eyes drift to a scrap of paper near the edge of the table, a torn piece from a notebook I use for grocery lists. I reach for it, my movements slow but deliberate, and grab a pen from the cluttered drawer. My hand is steady as I press the tip to the page, the ink flowing with a kind of finality I didn't expect. I write, "I did what you asked, now I'm leaving, and I'll never look back." The words are stark, unadorned, but they carry everything I can't say out loud. I don't sign it. There's no need. He'll know it's from me, and he'll know this is the end. I fold the note once, set it in the center of the table, and then, without a second thought, I slip off my wedding ring. The metal feels cold against my skin as I slide it over my knuckle, a weight I hadn't realized I was still carrying. I place it on top of the note, a silent anchor, a final goodbye to the life I thought I'd have. The soft clink as it settles feels louder than it should, like the closing of a door I'll never reopen. I stand, the chair scraping softly against the floor, and move toward the bedroom with a purpose I haven't felt in ages. I don't want to wake Mark, don't want the confrontation, the questions, the inevitable attempt to drag me back into the mire of our shared history. I just want out. I pull a small duffel bag from the closet, the fabric worn from trips we took years ago when things weren't so broken. I pack light, essentials only. A few changes of clothes, my laptop with all my design work, a small box of personal keepsakes I can't bear to leave behind. Each item goes in with a quiet efficiency, my hands moving on autopilot while my mind stays sharp, focused. I zip the bag shut, the sound a small, definitive click in the stillness of the house. Before I leave the room, I take one last look at the space that's been mine for over a decade. The faded couch in the living room catches my eye through the doorway, its sagging cushions holding memories of better days, now buried under years of silence. The cluttered shelves, stuffed with books and trinkets we collected together, seem like relics of a life that no longer belongs to me. I feel a pang in my chest, not regret exactly, but a kind of recognition, a quiet acknowledgement that this chapter is over, that I'm closing the book on Lena and Mark, on us. The days following my decision to file for divorce feel like stepping into a new skin, one that doesn't quite fit yet, but holds the promise of something better. I've rented a tiny apartment on the other side of town, a cramped little space with bare walls that echo every sound I make. There's just one window, a narrow pane that looks out over a small park, letting in slivers of light that dance across the scuffed hardwood floor. That first night, I sit alone on a second-hand couch I picked up for cheap, its faded fabric rough under my fingertips. I pour myself some inexpensive wine into a plastic cup, the kind you'd use at a picnic, and take slow sips, tasting the sharp tang while the silence wraps around me. But it's not loneliness I feel. It's peace, a quiet I haven't known in years, as if the weight of the past is finally lifting, even if only by a fraction. I think about Mark often in those early days, though I haven't spoken to him since I walked out. Through a mutual acquaintance, I hear he received the divorce papers and didn't fight them. I don't know if he's angry, hurt, or maybe even relieved to be free of me too. And as I sit there, staring at the blank wall across from me, I realize something startling. I don't care. That night, with his friends, the one that broke everything, wasn't just a betrayal in the rawest sense. It was a harsh, unforgiving mirror held up to my life. It showed me how far I'd drifted from who I used to be, how much of myself I'd let slip away in the name of holding on to something that was already gone. I can't pretend I'm blameless in the decay of our marriage. I stayed too long in a cage built of habit and fear, ignoring the rust on the bars until they finally snapped. I let guilt tether me to a life that no longer fit. But now, in this quiet, empty space, I'm ready to release that burden. I'm ready to stop carrying the weight of what we couldn't save. Rebuilding starts small, in ways that feel almost insignificant at first, but grow heavier with meaning as the days pass. I dive deeper into my freelance graphic design work, taking on more projects than I probably should, letting the deadlines and creative challenges fill the hours that used to drag. I start jogging in the park below my window, my sneakers pounding against the winding paths as the crisp morning air burns my lungs. It's not just exercise, it's a way to clear the clutter in my mind, to sweat out the lingering shadows of the past. On a whim, I sign up for a local art class, something I haven't done since I was a teenager, with dreams bigger than my small-town life. Holding a paintbrush again, feeling the bristles glide across a canvas, stirs something dormant in me, a passion I'd buried under years of routine and compromise. I'm not whole yet, not by a long shot. There are still nights when the emptiness creeps back in, when I wake up reaching for a warmth that's no longer there. But I'm piecing myself together, fragment by fragment, day by day, and each step feels like a quiet victory, a reclaiming of the woman I used to be before I lost her. There are moments, though, when the bittersweet ache of it all catches me off guard. I find myself standing at that single window in my apartment as dusk settles over the park, the sky bruising into shades of violet and gold. Below, kids chase each other across the grass, their laughter floating up to me like a melody I'd forgotten. I watch them, my hands pressed against the cool glass, and feel a faint smile tug at the corners of my mouth. It's not a grin of joy, not yet, but it's something softer, something hopeful. I don't know what's next for me. The future stretches out like an unwritten page, full of uncertainties and unanswered questions. But for the first time in what feels like forever, I'm curious to find out. I want to turn that page, to see what story I can write for myself now that I've closed the chapter on so much pain. Standing there, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.